Hey guys, Jay here, and here is my team selection thoughts for the Miami Grand Prix. Let's get into it. So first of all, my results for the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Team 1 and Team 2 had another positive weekend, both climbing in the rankings. Unfortunately, Team 3 suffered a little bit. For Team 1, I actually last minute decided to go different, and I actually went with Charles Leclerc over George Russell or Mercedes. I liked his pace in FP2, and the theory was that FP2 was a more representative of the track conditions, i.e. it was in the evening, it was cooler. So I went with Leclerc last minute, and it did pay off points wise because obviously he got third place, whereas George Russell dropped. For Team 2, I did go with George Russell, and it wasn't the end of the world because it was only a few points less than my Team 1. It was about 9 points less, I think, than Team 1. The mistake I made with this team was bringing in Gabriel Bortoleto for Esteban Ocon. I cashed in on Ocon because I wasn't sure how he would do in Saudi Arabia, given that it was a low overtaking track. This does now leave me with a potential 0.6 loss if I could play Limitless in Miami because I don't have Ocon. That said, that's not the end of the world either. But yeah, I brought in Bortoleto for Ocon. That was probably the one mistake I made with this team. And then for Team 3, unfortunately, I did get hit by the Pierre Gasly DNF. So in my last team thoughts video, my team thoughts for Saudi Arabia, I was looking at Alexander Albon as a potential recruit, as well as Gasly during the free practice sessions, and I couldn't decide what team to put them in. Originally I was going to put Albon in one team and Gasly in another. I ended up putting Albon and Gasly in the same team, Team 3, which was my best team. But like I say, I got hit by the DNF by Gasly, and with Norris crashing in qualifying, just even though he managed to finish P4 in the race, it does mean this team suffered a little bit, and it has the worst budget. So I don't think I'll be playing Limitless in Miami with this team. I think we'll be going back to budget building as a main focus for Team 3. And just going very quickly back on the rankings, the one thing that is standing out to me is Team 2. Team 2 has the best budget. They've got 110.2 million now in the bank, and they've climbed up a good 550,000 places over the last few weeks. So I think Team 2 is probably in the strongest position. Team 1 not too far off. Early thoughts. First of all, we're looking at the f1fantasytools.com/elite data. And the reason I've come to this, first of all, is again, lots of talk of Limitless. A lot of people play Limitless in Saudi Arabia. There's a lot of people that are going to be playing Limitless in Miami, probably including myself. And there's going to be a lot of people playing Limitless in Imola. Now, you can see here that going by the global 500, so that's the top 500 teams in the global league, a lot, if not nearly all, most teams have played at least one of these ships. The 3 times, the Limitless, the No Negative. A third have used the Autopilot, and nearly 20% have used their wildcard. The only one that hasn't really been used is the final fix. So if you're worrying about your rank and you've still got all these chips to play, don't worry, because you've got all these chips to play. The best time to use most of these chips, so the 3 times, the Autopilot, for example, is when you've got 2 A-tier drivers and constructors. Obviously Limitless, we're looking at now Miami or Imola, some possibly even Monaco, if you've still got it. Wildcard for me, the play is to use wildcard after using Limitless if I've got a good enough budget to build a strong team. Otherwise I'll keep hold of it. No Negative, which we're going to get to later on in this video, could come into play at Miami. But otherwise, No Negative you save for street circuits, tracks with bad weather, or when someone takes a grid penalty. For example, if say Verstappen takes an engine penalty, he could come through the field and you could get points that way. On the Patreon 500, it's a completely different story. 25% almost have used the Limitless chips, so I imagine most of them were in Saudi Arabia, and 22% have used Wildcard. But otherwise, you can see here, very few teams have used their ×3, no negative, autopilot, final fix. In terms of your tier A premium drivers, the one who's more or less guaranteed to go up in maximum price is Oscar Piastri. Oscar Piastri now is a must-have. I'm going to need to bring him into Team 3. He's already in Team 1 and 2. But Oscar Piastri is now a must-have. So he'll go up 0.3, no doubt, unless he has a shocker. Otherwise, it's kind of take your pick, really, on the other drivers. Remember, Miami has a sprint race, so there's more points up for grabs. So that does go in our favour with our assets. I've already got Leclerc in Team 1, and I'm fine with that. Russell is fine. He needs 13 points for a 0.1, 33 for a 0.3. Hamilton, I'm not overly keen on at the moment because just his mentality, he's not in the right headspace at the moment. Norris, I think, is fine as a second tier A driver, but not as a main, not as a 2 times. Same for Antonelli. I think Antonelli's okay for a second. Verstappen's fine for a second driver. I wouldn't 2 times him because 45 points for a 0.3 might be a stretch. But yeah, Oscar Piastri needs to be your 2 times driver now. It's not even a question. Let's look at the tier A constructors. And it's take your pick between McLaren, Ferrari and Mercedes because they're all guaranteed to go up in price. Points-wise though, McLaren or Ferrari. McLaren because they're just scoring the most points overall. Ferrari because they've got the most fastest pit stops. So there's a lot of talk now about Ferrari replacing Mercedes as that second tier A constructor. Red Bull I wouldn't touch right now, but I'm not ruling them out, in the near future. We just need Yuki to have a good session. But otherwise, yeah, McLaren, Ferrari, or at the very least Mercedes tier A constructors. So if you're looking for budget, Behrman, Hadjar, Lawson, Bortoleto is a possibility, i.e. he'll save you money because he can't go down, but there's also a good chance he could go up this in Miami. Alonso, Ocon, Albon at a stretch, which I'll get to in a minute. So Behrman is kind of a no-brainer at the moment. He's still bringing out really good results. He needs 4 points for a 0.6 and -4 for a 0.2. He's going to go up unless he DNFs. Hadjar needs 8 points for a 0.6, 3 for a 0.2. If it wasn't a sprint weekend, I'd probably be looking at a 0.2 for Hadjar, but it's a sprint weekend, so I would be looking at a 0.6. The same for Lawson. My only thing with Lawson was his confidence, but he seems to be getting it back. So yeah, I'd be fine with Lawson. Bortoleto I'm fine with because he saves you budget by not being able to decrease in budget, but also again sprint weekend, 6 points for a 0.2, 10 points for a 0.6 is a stretch, but 6 points for a 0.2 is possible on a sprint weekend. So Bortoleto could get a little bit of money. Alonso now comes into play. He needs 5 points for a 0.2 or 11 points for a 0.6. I can see him definitely getting 5 points, possibly 11. Depends how confident you feel on him. Ocon, Mr. Moneybags is what I'm calling him now. I took him out of my team because I was worried that, again, Saudi being an overtake track, I was worried he wouldn't hit a good threshold. He did go down 0.2, but now he's kind of laughing from Miami. 4 points for a 0.2, 12 points for a 0.6. Would I keep him after Miami? I don't know. It would depend what he needs. But if you've got Ocon in your team for Miami, especially if you're budget building, keep hold of Ocon, Mr. Moneybags. I wouldn't consider doing, he's not in my thoughts. And finally, Albon still is in my thoughts at a stretch. 10 points for a 0.2, 21 points for a 0.6. He won't get a 0.6, I don't think, but a 0.2 is definitely possible. I'll come to Albon again later on because he's actually one of the top, I think he's third for most overtakes this season. Otherwise, anyone else I am not thinking about at all. For the constructors, for Tier B, HAAS, VCarb, all fine. Aston Martin only need a point for a 0.6, but you're gonna get more money for your buck with HAAS or VCarb, to be honest. So I'd go HAAS or VCarb if you're budget building constructors. Otherwise, Alpine I'm not looking at. Williams could be a good differential for points and possibly budget this weekend. 0.2 points for 0.2, 16 points for 0.6. So it's a maybe for Williams this weekend. But moving forward though, they could be a potential second constructor when we start gearing up for points if we can't get into that second A constructor. So sticking with team builds and budget for a sec. Last night I went on my phone and I took my team 2, which is number 56, and I removed everyone from the team. Did this because the team has the biggest budget out of my 3 teams, and 110 million is more or less roundabouts where you want to be right now. Anything more than 110 million, you're in a very good position. Anything less than 110 million, you're going to want to budget build a bit more. So what I did, I emptied out the team, and then I basically just threw in some teams to see what I could make, but mainly to see if I could get to 2 Tier A constructors and 2 Tier A drivers. The only one I think I was able to do was a triple Mercedes with Ferrari, but that means you'd be running Russell and Antonelli, which ideally you would want, Piastri, Norris, Verstappen, Leclerc. You can get to a triple McLaren, but then you'd be looking at, like, say, Aston Martin as your second constructor. So we're not quite there yet, but there were a few that I didn't mind the look of. I'm just going through them at the moment whilst I'm recording. So there was one with Piastri, Leclerc, Alonso, Ferrari, Williams. I don't mind that too much. There was one with Piastri, Tsunoda, Ferrari, Mercedes if Tsunoda picks up. There's Piastri, Russell, Hajar, Lawson, McLaren, Williams. So there's a few ideas, but we're not quite there yet. Zach GP made a good point that we're probably looking at Monaco before we get our 2A drivers and constructors, but we're close. So I've got 3 assets that you want to keep your eye on. First is Esteban Ocon, Mr. Moneybags. He's just constantly getting in results. He did lose 0.2 this weekend, but again, he's bound to go up at Miami. 4 points for a 0.2, 12 points for a 0.6 rise. So he's definitely going to be rising, I imagine, at Miami. Mr. Moneybags, and the reason I bring him up is he is currently joint top with Oliver Bearman as the most value increase. And then we've got Alexander Albon, I mentioned this earlier. He's currently 3rd for overtakes in the overtake standings, just 1 behind Oliver Bearman and Kimi Antonelli. So you want to be keeping an eye on Alexander Albon because he could be a very good B tier asset for us to have for those overtake points. And then finally, Ferrari in the constructors for pit stops. They are currently top with 35 fastest pit stops, which is 8 ahead of Racing Bulls. So Ferrari, again, is looking like a must-have just for those extra pit stop points. And then finally, the ultimate question is, should you limitless in Miami? Right now, at the time of this recording, I will be limitless in Miami with teams 1 and 2. That said, you don't need to. So, me personally, I was looking at some... I was on the team calculator last night, and I think there is slightly more gains with limitless in Miami. And the reason I say that is because if I remember correctly, when I was looking last night, I'll have to find the images again. I compared them. But the Mercedes, McLaren, Piastri meta build scored around 230 points. And a limitless team scored about 241. And so the difference was about 111. Now I'm on the team calculator here, and we've got my T1 team. So this is McLaren, HAAS, Piastri, Leclerc, Delermain, HAAS, Bortoleto. And you can see here the best team scores about 28 more points. Okay, so this team here of McLaren, Mercedes, Piastri, Delermain, Ocon, HAAS, Bortoleto. Now, if I go to Limitless, that 28 points jumps to 152 points with a McLaren, Mercedes, Norris, Piastri, Verstappen, Russell, Antonelli build. I would be running Ferrari, I think, personally, and Leclerc over Antonelli, but just using this for example. And there was a good point made on my last video about the weighted average simulation. So this is the default setting here. You can see that as each race goes by, the relevance of that race decreases. But Sammy made a good point on my last video, so thank you, Sammy, which was they were doing this, which is to 100% the last two races since we're on the 3-race average system. And when we do that, you can see here that now we've got McLaren, Ferrari, Piastri, Norris, Verstappen, Hamilton, Russell, 404 points compared to 282. So the comparison has shrunk a little bit, but that's still an extra, 10 points more than the gains from Saudi, if my maths is correct. So what we're looking at here, let's just call it 182. We'll ignore the 0.5. So 18, 118, 122. So I think Limitless in Miami is the play. But even if you're not limitless in Miami, the other advantage is, my way of thinking is this: when it comes to the budget building, sprint race means more chance. Sprint weekend, sorry, means more chance of points, so more chance of a guaranteed price rise. So, for example, let's look at Alonso: 5 points for a 0.2, 11 points for a 0.6. He got 7 points in Saudi Arabia, so 5 points should be a breeze. But because we've got a sprint race and a Grand Prix, that 11 points looks more that 11 points target looks potentially more doable and makes Alonso more tempting. So don't overthink it too much. Go with your gut. Either play Limitless in Miami or hold on to it and then play it in either Imola. Monaco would be the latest, I think, to play it. So that brings me to my team selections. Team 1, the current plan is to play Limitless, so you can see it here. Obviously, I've not fully activated it yet, but the current plan is to play Limitless. So I've already got Piastri, I've already got Leclerc, I've already got McLaren. I would be bringing in Ferrari, that's not even a question. We'll take out HAAS, Delermain and Bortoleto, and I would definitely be going with Max Verstappen. I'd be going Lando Norris, and I'd be going George Russell. That would be my Limitless team for both Team 1 and for Team 2. Team 3. Now, this is why it's important to build budget early in the season. Before Saudi Arabia, my Team 3 was in the top 100,000. They had a bad weekend, and now I'm at a point where I now need to build budget again, because they only have 108 plus million. So they're about 2 million off, a decent budget. So for this team, I need to budget build for Miami. My current thoughts, it's bringing Oscar Piastri. Sorry to say goodbye to Gasly. Unfortunately, the DNF has hit him too hard. Definitely Esteban Ocon. and then I need to make a choice. I could bring in Kimi Antonelli. See what I mean about having good budget? But now that I'm doing this, yeah, so Antonelli, I could keep Albon, because if he does do well, he could get that 0.6. Or I could lock in Alonso early, which may be the play. So Chips, we've already hit on Limitless, but I'll just refresh. Limitless in Miami, fine. Limitless in Imola, fine. Play whatever you think is going to benefit your team the most, is my opinion. The other one that may come into play is no negative. The reason I say that is because it looks like, I'm sorry to say this, it could be a wet race. Hi guys, just going to pause the video here very quickly. An update on the weather front. It's a bit confusing. On bbc.co.uk it is saying that there's going to be rain potentially for the Grand Prix. However, on accuweather.com, sorry, it's saying 28 degrees, bright periods, and it's dry. But then on weather.com, again, it says partial cloudiness early with scattered showers and thunderstorms in the afternoon. So I don't know what is correct in terms of the weather front. So what I would say is do check the weather nearer the time of the Grand Prix, because it looks like it could go either way at the time of this recording. So in terms of the timing for Miami weekend, here in the UK, practice 1 is at 5:30 on Friday afternoon, with the sprint qualifying at 9:30. Remember, you do not have to lock in your teams until after sprint qualifying, but you must lock them in before the sprint race. So make sure to pay attention to sprint qualifying. That said, on the Saturday, the sprint race is at 5, with the Grand Prix qualifying at 9 o'clock in the evening, and then the Grand Prix at 9 o'clock on Sunday evening. So talking of the sprint and Grand Prix, last season in the sprint race, your top 10 were Max Verstappen, Charles Leclerc, Sergio Perez, Daniel Ricciardo, Carlos Sainz, Oscar Piastri, Nico Hülkenberg, Yuki Tsunoda, Pierre Gasly, Logan Sargent. And then for the race though, Lando bounced back, winning the Grand Prix with Verstappen in second, followed by Leclerc, Sainz, Perez, Hamilton, Tsunoda, Russell, Alonso, Ocon. So in terms of grid rivals, unfortunately, I had my F1 Fantasy cap on, and so I just went with like lower tiers for one race contracts, trying to protect my budget so that I could go into Miami with a good team. It backfired on me very, very hard. I actually lost I lost 6.2 million in budget. I got hit by Gasly, Russell, Doohan, Tsunoda, Bortoleto. All my assets, all of them lost in value. The good thing with GridRivals is that you can't have less than 100 million in your bank, so it does mean I start with 100 million again. But it's a complete rebuild now from scratch, and I'm probably just gonna go for points now, if I'm completely honest, because I don't know if I'm enjoying GridRivals as much as I thought I would. I think I'm too in deep with F1 Fantasy, but I'll carry on for the season and we'll see how it goes. Finally, guys, just to let you know that I am actually going to be away during the Miami Grand Prix weekend. I'm going to my sister's, and on Sunday I am going to watch the GT European World Challenge at Brands Hatch. So that's it from me, guys. I've been recording for about an hour or so now, so I will start editing this afternoon, finish editing tomorrow, hopefully have this up for you Wednesday evening. I hope I've covered everything, and apologies if this is a long one, because I think it might be, but otherwise, yeah. I won't be doing a final thoughts video because, again, being away, but otherwise I will speak to you in 2 weeks when we start discussing our teams for Imola. As always, thank you for watching. All the best. Look after yourselves. Speak to you soon.